The void between galaxies held secrets that most civilizations never dared to seek. In this endless darkness, where even starlight became a distant memory, something impossible waited. It had been drifting there for millions of years, patient and silent, until the day scanner pilot Kev of the Valdari Empire stumbled upon readings that made no sense. His instruments screamed warnings as massive energy signatures appeared on his display. What he found defied everything he knew about physics. A gate made of pure crystal floated in the emptiness, larger than most space stations. Its surface shifted with colors that hurt to look at directly, and strange symbols covered every inch of its frame. Kev transmitted his discovery back to the Valdari fleet, and within days, the entire third battle group arrived. Commander Thale, a veteran of 12 conquest campaigns, had never seen anything like it. The gate stood 3 kilometers tall and just as wide, its crystalline structure pulsing with energy that made his ship's shields flicker. "Scan everything," Thale ordered his science team. "I want to know what this thing is and where it came from." Dr. Voss, the fleet's lead researcher, worked for hours trying to make sense of the readings. The crystal seemed to bend space around itself. Energy flowed through it in patterns that followed no known laws. Most disturbing of all, the symbols carved into its surface seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. "Commander, we have translation programs working on the inscriptions," Voss reported. "But something is wrong. Every time we try to study the symbols directly, our computers crash. The crew members who look at them report headaches and strange dreams." Thale frowned. In all his years of conquest, he had learned that anything too dangerous to study was usually worth claiming. "What about the symbols we can read?" "Fragments only, sir. We see warnings about something called the Endless Hunger and references to cosmic aberrations. The builders, whoever they were, seemed terrified of what lies beyond this gate." The commander studied the massive structure through the filtered view screen. Even with all the safety measures, looking at it too long made his vision blur. "Any idea who built it?" "The construction style matches legends of the architects, sir. The civilization that supposedly ruled the galaxy before any of our current species evolved. Most scholars think they're myths, but this proves otherwise." Thale smiled coldly. If the architects were real, their technology would make the Valdari Empire unstoppable. "Establish a perimeter. I want orbital fortresses surrounding this gate within the week. Nothing gets close without our permission." The Valdari worked quickly, as they always did when treasure was involved. Massive construction ships arrived and began building a ring of defensive stations around the gate. Gun platforms, shield generators, and scanning arrays created an impenetrable fortress in the void. Word of the discovery spread through the Empire's channels, but Thale made sure the information stayed classified. The High Council sent additional fleets, turning the empty space around the gate into a military zone that could hold off entire alien armadas. "Sir, we're detecting energy patterns inside the gate structure," Voss reported after a week of continuous study. "It appears to be some kind of portal, but activating it would require enormous power. More than our entire fleet can generate." "What kind of portal?" "Unknown, Commander. The inscriptions suggest it leads somewhere the architects considered too dangerous to leave open. They sealed it with warnings meant to keep others away." Thale studied the tactical displays showing his growing fortress. 12 orbital platforms now surrounded the gate, each one armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Have we learned anything about activation sequences?" "The crystal responds to specific harmonic frequencies, but we haven't found the right combination. Our attempts so far have only caused minor energy fluctuations. Keep trying, and make sure our claim to this discovery is registered with the Galactic Council. Any species that even thinks about approaching gets a warning shot." Dr. Voss hesitated. "Sir, there is one concern. Long-range sensors have detected a small exploration vessel on the edge of our sensor range. It appears to be human." The commander's expression darkened. Humans were a young species, barely worthy of notice in galactic politics. They had shown up only a few centuries ago, claiming worlds on the galaxy's outer rim and staying mostly to themselves. Most established civilizations considered them primitives playing with technology they barely understood. Humans? What would they want out here? Unknown, sir. They're maintaining distance but seem to be conducting their own scans of the gate. Thale turned back to the view screen where the mysterious gate continued its eternal pulse. Send them a message. Tell them this area is under Valdari control and they need to leave immediately. Yes, sir. Should we prepare weapons? Not yet. They're probably just lost. Once they understand what they're dealing with, they'll run back to their little colonies. But even as he gave the order, something bothered Thale about the human presence. The gate had been hidden in the void for millions of years, yet both the Valdari and humans had found it within days of each other. That seemed like too much of a coincidence. On the human vessel, Communications Officer Amy received the Valdari warning with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The small exploration ship Wanderer was nowhere near powerful enough to fight an entire alien fleet, but they had made an incredible discovery. Should we withdraw? She asked her captain. Reed studied the displays showing the massive Valdari fortress surrounding the ancient gate. Her crew of 30 scientists and explorers had been conducting a routine deep space survey when they detected the strange energy signatures. Now they found themselves facing one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces. Not yet, Reed decided. We have as much right to study that gate as they do. Send a response. Tell them we're conducting peaceful scientific research in neutral space. Amy swallowed nervously. Captain, they have enough firepower to turn us into dust. Maybe. But they also don't seem interested in actually fighting. If they wanted us gone, they would have shot first and talked later. The fact that they sent a warning means they're not sure of their legal claim. Dr. Harris, the ship's xenoarchaeologist, looked up from her console where she had been studying long-range scans of the gate. Captain, I think I know why they're hesitant. Look at these energy readings. Reed moved to Harris's station where complex patterns filled the screen. What am I looking at? The gate's resonance frequency. It's not random. It's following mathematical progressions that look almost like music. And there's something else. Those symbols on the gate's surface, they're not warnings, they're instructions. Dr. Harris had always been good with puzzles, but the symbols covering the ancient gate presented a challenge unlike anything she had encountered. While the Valdari struggled with headaches and computer crashes every time they tried to study the inscriptions directly, she found herself oddly comfortable staring at the shifting patterns for hours. It's fascinating, she told Reed during one of their daily briefings. The Valdari are treating this like some kind of psychic weapon, but I think the symbols are just written in a way that non-human minds can't process properly. Reed studied the data Harris had collected over the past 3 days. The Wanderer maintained its position at the edge of the Valdari perimeter, technically in neutral space but close enough for detailed scans. What makes you think humans are different? Look at these patterns, Harris said, pointing to her screen. The symbols use a kind of multi-dimensional language. They exist in several layers of meaning at once. Human brains are naturally good at handling that kind of complexity because we evolved with symbolic thinking and abstract reasoning. And other species didn't? Not the same way. Most alien species develop logic and technology through very different paths. The Valdari, for example, are extremely hierarchical. Their thinking is very linear and structured. These symbols require a more flexible approach. Reed watched as Harris manipulated the translation programs, slowly teasing meaning from the ancient inscriptions. What have you figured out so far? The builders called themselves the architects, just like the legends say. But here's the interesting part. They weren't destroyed by some external force. They voluntarily left our reality. Left? Where did they go? Harris gestured toward the massive gate floating in the distance. Through there. The portal doesn't lead to danger. It leads to a pocket dimension they created as a refuge. The endless hunger the inscriptions mention isn't some cosmic monster. It's an endless hunger for knowledge and discovery. What about the cosmic aberrations? Advanced physics, technologies and concepts that would seem impossible to less developed minds. The architects weren't trying to scare people away. They were trying to warn primitive civilizations that what lay beyond the gate was too advanced for them to understand safely. Reed felt a chill of excitement. So the gate is actually a doorway to the architect's civilization? Not exactly. More like their ultimate library and laboratory, a place where they stored their greatest discoveries before leaving our reality behind. The problem is activation. Harris pulled up new calculations on her screen. The gate requires a specific quantum resonance pattern to open, not just raw energy, but precise mathematical sequences transmitted through quantum fields. The Valdari have been trying to force it open with brute power, but that will never work. Can we do it? Maybe. The Wanderer has those new quantum computers we picked up on Earth. They're designed for exactly this kind of complex calculation, but we'd need to get much closer to the gate. Reed looked at the tactical display showing the ring of Valdari fortresses. That might be a problem. Their conversation was interrupted by Amy's voice over the comm system. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Valdari fleet. Commander Thale wants to speak with you directly." Reed made her way to the communications station, where Thale's image appeared on the main screen. The Valdari commander looked even more imposing in person, his scaled features set in a permanent scowl. "Human Captain," Thale began without preamble, "your presence here is no longer tolerable. This gate is claimed by the Valdari Empire under right of discovery. You have 1 day to leave this system." "Commander Thale," Reed replied calmly, "we're conducting peaceful scientific research in neutral space. We have no intention of interfering with your operations. Your intentions are irrelevant. This discovery belongs to the Valdari. We will not allow primitives to contaminate our research." Reed felt her temper flare, but kept her voice steady. "Primitives? We've been analyzing the gate's inscriptions for 3 days. Have you made any progress with your translation efforts?" Thale's expression darkened. "We are not in the habit of discussing military secrets with inferior species." "Then you haven't been able to read them either," Reed said. "The symbols are causing psychological effects in your crew, aren't they? Headaches? Nightmares? Equipment failures?" The Valdari commander's silence was answer enough. "Commander, what if I told you the inscriptions aren't warnings at all? What if they're actually operating instructions?" "Impossible. Our best xenolinguists have confirmed the threatening nature of the text." Reed nodded to Harris, who began transmitting their translation data. "Dr. Harris, show him what we've discovered." On Thale's screen, the human translations appeared alongside the original symbols. The true meaning of the inscriptions became clear: detailed instructions for gate activation, descriptions of the pocket dimension beyond, and explanations of the architect's advanced technology. Thale studied the data for long moments, his expression shifting from anger to confusion to something approaching fear. "This translation, it contradicts everything our scientists have determined." "Because your scientists can't read the symbols properly," Harris interjected. "The architect language uses cognitive patterns that are naturally difficult for most alien species to process. Humans seem to have a natural compatibility with their thought processes." "Even if this translation is accurate," Thale said slowly, "it changes nothing. The gate belongs to the Valdari Empire." "But you can't activate it," Reed pointed out. "Your approach has been unsuccessful because you're trying to force the gate open with raw power. The actual activation sequence requires precise quantum calculations." Thale's image flickered as he consulted with his advisors off-screen. When he returned, his expression was coldly furious. You expect us to believe that humans, who barely achieved faster-than-light travel, can succeed where the greatest military force in the galaxy has failed? I expect you to consider the possibility, Reed said. Commander, we're not your enemies. We're not trying to steal your discovery. We're trying to help you understand it. The Valdari Empire does not need help from primitives. Reed sighed. Then I hope you figure it out on your own. We'll continue our research from our current position. Thale leaned forward, his alien features twisted with rage. If you do not withdraw immediately, I will consider your presence an act of aggression. That would be unfortunate, Reed replied. But we're not leaving. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the human crew staring at a blank screen. Well, Amy said after a moment, that went well. Harris was already back at her console, working on new calculations. Captain, I think I've figured out the complete activation sequence. The gate requires a very specific quantum resonance pattern, transmitted in stages over several minutes. How long would we need to be in close proximity to the gate? At least 30 minutes for a complete activation cycle, maybe longer if there are complications. Reed studied the tactical display again. The Valdari fortress looked impregnable, but there might be gaps in their coverage. Tom, she called to their engineer, how fast can we get from our current position to the gate? Tom ran quick calculations. In a straight line? About 15 minutes at maximum acceleration, but we'd be completely exposed to their weapons. And if we wait, the Valdari are bringing in more ships every day. Soon there won't be any approach routes at all. Reed made her decision. Prep the quantum computers for gate activation. If we're going to do this, we need to be ready to move fast. The tension in space around the ancient gate had reached a breaking point. For 2 weeks, the human vessel Wanderer had maintained its position just outside Valdari territory, conducting scans and refusing to leave despite increasingly aggressive warnings. Commander Thale paced the bridge of his flagship, watching the small human ship with growing frustration. Status report, he demanded from Dr. Voss. Our latest attempt to activate the gate failed again, sir. We channeled the entire power output of 6 dreadnoughts directly into the crystal structure. The gate responded with minor energy fluctuations, but nothing approaching activation. Thale slammed his fist against the command console. How can a simple portal resist the combined might of the Valdari Third Fleet? Sir, I've been reviewing the human translation data they transmitted, Voss said carefully. Their interpretation of the inscriptions is compelling. What if they're correct about the activation requirements? You believe the primitives understand architect technology better than we do. Voss hesitated. The commander's temper had grown worse each day. The humans remained in the system. Sir, their translation suggests the gate doesn't respond to raw power. It requires precise quantum resonance patterns. Perhaps we should consider their approach. Before Thale could respond, the tactical officer interrupted. Commander, the human vessel is moving. They're accelerating toward the gate. On the main screen, the small exploration ship had broken from its holding position and was racing directly toward the Valdari perimeter. Thale watched with a mixture of rage and disbelief as the tiny vessel approached his massive fortress. Are they insane? Open a channel. Reed's image appeared on screen, and Thale was surprised to see her looking calm rather than desperate. Commander Thale, we're making our approach to the gate. Please instruct your ships not to interfere. You dare breach Valdari space, I will destroy you where you stand. Actually, we're still in neutral territory, Reed replied. According to galactic law, you can only claim a 2-kilometer radius around discovered artifacts. The gate is 3 kilometers wide, which means neutral space extends right up to its edge. Thale checked his legal databases and cursed silently. The human was technically correct. Legal technicalities will not save you if you attempt to activate our gate. Your gate? Commander, you've been trying to open it for weeks without success. Under salvage law, if you abandon the attempt, the artifact becomes available for other claimants. We have not abandoned anything, Reed smiled. Then prove it. Show us you can activate the gate. The challenge hung in space between them like a thrown gauntlet. Thale knew his fleet had already exhausted every conventional approach to opening the portal, but admitting failure to a human was unthinkable. Very well, he growled. Stand witness to Valdari power. Thale ordered his entire fleet to focus their energy weapons on the gate's crystal surface. 30 dreadnoughts and twice as many support vessels channeled their full output into concentrated beams. The ancient structure blazed with absorbed energy, its crystalline facets glowing like captured stars. For a moment, it seemed like the massive display of force might work. The gate's surface rippled, and space around it began to distort. Energy readings spiked beyond anything previously recorded. Then, without warning, the gate released all the stored power at once. The explosion sent shockwaves racing through space. Valdari ships closest to the gate were thrown backward by the energy wave. Shield generators overloaded and failed. Several smaller vessels suffered hull breaches from the sudden pressure differential. Thale's flagship shuddered as the wave hit, and emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge. When the chaos subsided, the gate hung unchanged in space, completely undamaged by the assault. "Status report!" Thale shouted over the alarms. "Severe damage to the outer perimeter, sir. 3 stations are offline, and we have hull breaches on 7 ships. The gate shows no signs of activation." Reed's voice came through the still-open communication channel. "Commander, are you willing to admit that brute force isn't working?" Thale turned to see the human captain still looking maddeningly calm on his screen. Her ship had been far enough away to avoid the worst of the shock wave, though he could see some minor damage to their hull plating. "What do you propose, human?" "Let us try our approach. If we fail, we'll leave the system and acknowledge your claim. If we succeed, we share whatever we find beyond the gate." "Impossible. The Valdari Empire does not negotiate with primitives." Reed shrugged. "Then enjoy trying. To repair your fleet while the gate remains sealed forever." Thale cut the transmission and turned to his advisors. Dr. Voss spoke up immediately. "Sir, their quantum resonance theory might actually work. We've confirmed that the gate responds to harmonic frequencies, not just raw energy. You want me to trust human technology over Valdari engineering? Sir, their quantum computers are actually quite advanced. Earth's scientific community has made surprising progress in certain fields, if their calculations are correct." Thale stared at the gate, weighing his options. Pride warred with pragmatism as he considered the implications. If the humans succeeded where his fleet had failed, it would be a humiliation that would echo through the Empire. But if the gate remained sealed, he would return home with nothing to show for his efforts. "Sir," the tactical officer interrupted, "long-range sensors are detecting additional ships approaching the system. It appears word of the gate's discovery has leaked." Thale checked the sensor readings and cursed. At least 4 different species had sent exploration fleets toward their position. Within days, the system would be crowded with competing claimants, all demanding access to the Architect Gate. "Time is running out, Commander," Dr. Voss observed. "If we don't activate the gate, soon we may lose our exclusive claim entirely." Thale made his decision with the cold calculation that had made him one of the Empire's most successful commanders. "Open a channel to the human ship." Reed appeared on screen again, and Thale noted that she didn't look surprised by his call. "Human. Captain, you will make one attempt to activate the gate under Valdari supervision. If you succeed, the contents beyond belong to the Empire. If you fail, you leave immediately and acknowledge our exclusive claim." "Agreed, with one modification. If we succeed, the gate becomes neutral territory under joint administration. Both our species get access to whatever lies beyond." "Unacceptable." Reed's expression hardened. "Then good luck with your repairs, Commander. I'm sure those approaching fleets will be very understanding about your territorial claims." Thale glanced at the tactical display showing the incoming ships. In a few hours, His position would become untenable. Very well. Joint administration. But Valdari interests take priority. We'll discuss the details after we see what's on the other side. The human ship began moving toward the gate, its quantum computers already humming with calculations. Thale watched with grudging respect as the small vessel approached the massive crystal structure with none of the caution his own ships had shown. "Dr. Voss," he said quietly, "prepare our fastest ships to follow them through. Whatever lies beyond that. Gate! The humans will not claim it alone." Tom's voice echoed through the Wanderer as they approached the gate. "Quantum computers are online and running the activation sequence. Energy patterns are looking good." Reed felt her heart race as her small ship drew near the ancient portal. Around them, damaged Valdari vessels maintained watchful positions, their weapons trained on the human vessel. "Harris, are you certain about these calculations?" "As certain as I can be about architect technology," Harris replied. "The gate is responding to our approach. Look at those energy patterns." The crystal structure was indeed changing, its surface shifting from dull opacity to brilliant translucence. The mathematical sequence flowing from their quantum computers seemed to be unlocking something that had waited millions of years for the right key. "Here we go," Reed whispered as the gate began to open. The ancient gate responded to human quantum calculations like a flower opening to sunlight. As the Wanderer transmitted the precise mathematical sequences Dr. Harris had decoded, the massive crystal structure began to transform. What had appeared solid and impenetrable for weeks suddenly became translucent, revealing swirling depths that seemed to extend into infinity. Tom monitored the energy readings from his engineering station, watching patterns he had never seen before. "Captain, the gate is drawing power from our quantum computers but not draining them. It's like it's using our calculations as a template to generate its own energy." "Is that normal?" Reed asked, though she realized nothing about their situation. "Could be considered normal. I have no idea what's normal for million-year-old alien technology," Tom replied. "But our systems are stable, and the gate is definitely opening." Through the bridge windows, they could see the portal expanding. The swirling colors inside shifted from deep purple to brilliant gold to shades that had no names in any human language. Space itself seemed to bend around the edges of the opening, creating visual distortions that made Reed's eyes water. Harris stared at her readings in amazement. "Captain, the energy signatures coming from inside the portal are incredible. I'm detecting what looks like an entire artificial dimension. Cities, power sources, data networks spanning impossible distances. The architect refuge? It has to be. Everything matches their descriptions in the inscriptions." Behind them, Commander Thale watched from his flagship as the impossible became reality. The humans had accomplished in minutes what his entire fleet couldn't achieve in weeks. The gate now showed a clear passage into whatever lay beyond, and the small human vessel was preparing to enter. "Sir," Dr. Voss reported, "our sensors are detecting massive structures beyond the portal. The energy readings suggest technological capabilities far beyond anything in known space." Thale's pride warred with military pragmatism. The humans had succeeded where he had failed, but that only made the prize more valuable. "Prepare pursuit ships. We follow them through immediately." "Sir, should we establish communications with the human vessel?" "No. They've opened the door, but what lies beyond still belongs to the Valdari Empire." Reed was making final preparations for transit when Amy alerted her to movement in the Valdari fleet. "Captain, multiple ships are moving toward the gate. It looks like they intend to follow us through." "Expected," Reed replied. "We agreed to joint access. Just make sure they don't try to ram us while we're navigating the portal." The Wanderer moved slowly toward the swirling gateway. As they approached, Reed felt a strange sensation, as if the ship was being gently pulled forward by invisible forces. The portal seemed to welcome them, drawing them in with an almost organic grace. "Transition in 30 seconds, Tom announced. "All systems show green. Harris was recording everything, knowing they were about to become the first humans to enter. An architect refuge. Captain, whatever we find in there, we need to remember that we're representing our entire species. I know, Reed said quietly. Let's make a good impression. The moment of transition was unlike anything they had experienced. Instead of the violent passage through a jump gate or the disorienting effects of faster-than-light travel entering, the architect portal felt like stepping through a doorway into a larger room. One moment they were in normal space, and the next, they were somewhere else entirely. The view through their windows took away their breath. They floated in a vast spherical chamber that stretched beyond the horizon in all directions. The walls, if they could be called walls, were covered with structures that defied description. Cities hung in impossible orientations, connected by bridges of pure light. Massive installations rotated slowly through space, their surfaces covered with symbols that shifted and changed as they watched. "My God," Amy whispered. "It's beautiful." Tom was checking his instruments, trying to make sense of the readings. "Captain, this space is much larger than it should be. Based on the external dimensions of the gate, this chamber should be maybe a few kilometers across. My sensors are detecting structures hundreds of thousands of kilometers away." "Folded space," Harris said with awe. "The architects compressed an entire pocket universe into the volume behind the gate. This isn't just a refuge. It's their entire civilization, preserved in a bubble of altered reality." Reed began to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. How many installations are we looking at? Hundreds, maybe thousands. Each one appears to be a different type of facility. I'm detecting what look like research stations, manufacturing centers, data storage complexes, even what might be residential areas. Their wonder was interrupted by the arrival of the Valdari ships. 3 fast cruisers burst through the portal in a formation designed for battle, their weapons immediately scanning for targets. Commander Thale's voice filled the communication. "Channels. Human vessel. Maintain your current position. This territory is now under Valdari control." Reed sighed. Even in the face of one of the greatest discoveries in galactic history, the Valdari commander was still thinking in terms of conquest and domination. "Commander Thale, look around you. This isn't territory to be conquered. It's a library, a museum, a repository of knowledge that belongs to all sapient species." "It belongs to whoever has the strength to claim it," Thale replied. "Valdari's strength opened this portal." "Actually, human calculations opened the portal," Reed corrected. "Your strength failed completely." Before Thale could respond, something else happened that changed everything. The nearest architect installation, a crystalline structure the size of a small moon, began to glow with soft blue light. Patterns of energy raced across its surface, and suddenly, a new voice filled their communication channels. "Welcome, travelers from beyond the veil." The voice was unlike anything they had heard before. It spoke in perfect English to the humans and flawless Valdari to Thale's ships, as if it somehow understood not just their languages, but their thoughts and intentions. "I am the Keeper, guardian of the architect legacy. Long have we waited for species mature enough to unlock the gates and enter our refuge." Reed found her voice first. "Keeper, we are honored to meet you. Are you an architect?" "I am what remains of their wisdom, given form and purpose to preserve their knowledge for those who would come after. You are the first to successfully navigate the gate's protections in 3 million years." Thale's voice cut through the moment of reverence. "Guardian, this refuge now belongs to the Valdari Empire. We claim it by right of conquest." The Keeper's response held a note of what might have been amusement. "Conquest? You misunderstand the nature of this place, Commander Thale. The architect legacy cannot be owned, only shared. Those who seek to claim it for themselves alone will find it as unreachable as the gate was to your brute force. We have weapons capable of destroying your installations." You have weapons capable of destroying yourselves, the keeper replied, calmly. The refuge exists in folded space sustained by precise energy balances. Aggressive actions would collapse the dimensional matrix and trap you here forever. Reed saw an opportunity to defuse the situation. Keeper, our species are here, seeking knowledge and understanding. We don't wish to disturb your guardianship or damage what the architects built. Wise words, Captain Reed. The architects anticipated that multiple species would eventually find their way here. They designed the refuge to accommodate many different forms of intelligence, each contributing their unique perspectives to the greater understanding. Thal's ships continued to maintain aggressive positions, but Reed noticed that their weapons were not powering up. Perhaps the commander was beginning to understand that traditional military thinking would not serve him here. What do you offer? Those who come in peace? Reed asked. Access to the sum total of architect knowledge, technologies that could transform your civilizations, philosophies that could guide your species toward true enlightenment, history that spans the rise and fall of 1,000 galactic civilizations. All of this awaits those willing to approach with open minds rather than grasping hands. Reed looked at the incredible vista surrounding them, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had opened the door to wonders, beyond imagination, but what they did next would determine whether they were worthy of the gift the architects had left behind. 3 months had passed since the first ships entered the architect refuge, and the pocket dimension had transformed from an empty mystery into the most important location in known space. What started as a tense standoff between humans and Valdari had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history: genuine cooperation. Reed walked through the corridors of the newly established Research Station Alpha, built from architect materials that shaped themselves according to the user's needs. The station served as neutral ground where representatives from dozens of species worked together to understand the incredible legacy surrounding them. Daily report, she requested from Harris, who had become the unofficial head of xenoarchaeological research. We've cataloged over 200 installations so far, Harris reported, consulting her notes. Each one specializes in different aspects of architect knowledge. We have facilities dedicated to physics, biology, engineering, philosophy, even arts and culture. The keeper estimates we've explored less than 5% of what's available. Reed nodded, still amazed by the scope of their discovery. Any major breakthroughs? Several. The Talari delegation made contact with a historical archive that contains complete records of galactic civilization going back 50 million years. The Zephyrian researchers discovered medical technologies that could eliminate most known diseases. And Tom's engineering team found manufacturing systems that can create materials at the molecular level. What about the Valdari? Harris smiled. That's actually the most interesting development. Commander Thale has been working with a facility dedicated to military strategy and leadership philosophy. The architect approach to conflict resolution is changing his entire worldview. Reed found that hard to believe. The Valdari commander had spent his first month in the refuge making territorial demands and trying to establish military control over various installations. The keeper had gently but firmly blocked every attempt, explaining that the architect legacy responded only to cooperation and genuine curiosity. He's really changing? See for yourself. He's in conference room 3, with the latest group of arrivals. Reed made her way to the conference room, where she found Thale explaining refugee protocols to a mixed group of representatives from recently arrived species. The Valdari commander looked relaxed in a way she had never seen before, his usual aggressive posture replaced by something approaching wisdom. The key to understanding architect technology, Thale was saying, is to approach it without preconceptions. Military thinking, commercial interests, even scientific assumptions can all block access to their deeper knowledge. The installations respond to genuine curiosity and willingness to learn. A young Centaurian scientist raised her hand. But, Commander, How do we balance species interests with collective discovery? Thale considered the question carefully. I learned the hard way that hoarding knowledge actually limits your access to it. The architect systems are designed to reward sharing and collaboration. The more openly you work with others, the more the installations reveal to you. Reed watched in amazement as the commander, who had once threatened to destroy her ship now, patiently answered questions about cooperation and mutual benefit. The change was remarkable, but it wasn't unique. Every species that entered the refuge seemed to undergo similar transformations. After the briefing ended, Thale approached Reed with something that might have been embarrassment on his alien features. Captain Reed, I owe you an apology. My initial approach to this discovery was short-sighted. We all make mistakes, Commander. What matters is how we learn from them. The Keeper showed me something yesterday that I wanted to share with you. Would you have time to visit the historical archive? Reed agreed, curious about what had prompted this change in the Valdari commander. They took a transport pod through the vast space of the refuge, passing installations that still took her breath away. The historical archive was one of the larger facilities, a crystalline structure that seemed to contain swirling galaxies within its transparent walls. The Keeper materialized as they entered, its form shifting to accommodate both human and Valdari visual preferences. Welcome, Captain Reed and Commander Thale. You wish to review the cycle records? Please, Thale said. I think Captain Reed should understand why cooperation matters so much to the architects. The space around them transformed into a three-dimensional display showing the galaxy as it had existed millions of years ago. Reed gasped as she saw countless civilizations spanning the stars, their territories marked in different colors across thousands of systems. This was the galaxy during the height of the architect civilization, the Keeper explained. They were not conquerors but coordinators. They helped younger species develop, facilitated trade and communication, and prevented conflicts through wisdom rather than force. What happened to them? Reed asked. They evolved beyond the need for physical existence. But before leaving, they recognized that other species would eventually reach similar levels of development. The refuge was created as a test and a gift for those who proved ready. The display shifted, showing the rise and fall of civilizations over millions of years. Reed watched empires rise through conquest only to collapse under their own weight, while cooperative alliances lasted far longer and achieved greater heights. Every few million years, a species discovers one of the gates we left behind, the Keeper continued. Most fail the test. They approach with weapons instead of curiosity, demanding instead of asking, hoarding instead of sharing. These species are gently turned away, left to develop further before they can try again. Thale spoke up. The Valdari Empire has failed this test twice before. We found architect gates in our distant past, but our military approach prevented us from opening them. Reed understood now why the commander had changed so dramatically. But we succeeded because we worked together. Precisely, the Keeper said. Humanity's natural inclination toward cooperation, combined with your species' unique cognitive flexibility, made you ideal candidates to unlock the gate. But the real test came after you entered. Would you share the discovery, or would you try to claim it exclusively? And we passed? With remarkable grace. Within days of your arrival, you had established protocols for peaceful exploration and knowledge sharing. Other species that have passed this test took months or even years to reach the same level of cooperation. Reed felt a surge of pride, not just for humanity, but for all the species now working together in the refuge. What happens next? You continue to learn and grow. The architect legacy contains technologies that could transform your civilizations, but more importantly, it contains wisdom that could guide your species toward true maturity. When you are ready, you will help prepare the way for the next species to find a gate. Thale gestured toward the display, which now showed the current state of the galaxy. Captain, There are dozens of architect gates scattered throughout known space. Most remain sealed, waiting for species mature enough to open them. You're suggesting we should help others find them? I'm suggesting we should help others become ready for them, Thale corrected. The knowledge we gain here could be used to guide younger civilizations, to help them develop the wisdom and cooperation needed to pass the test. Reed considered the implications. Instead of keeping their discoveries secret, they could become teachers and guides for other species. The architect legacy would grow stronger with each new civilization that joined the community of cooperation. The Keeper mentioned that this has happened before. Are there other refugees like this one? 7 others, the Keeper confirmed. Each one discovered by species that proved worthy of the architect legacy. Your refuge is the youngest, but it may well become the most influential. Why? Because humanity has a unique gift for bringing others together. In just 3 months, you have facilitated cooperation between species that were enemies for centuries. The Valdari and the Zephyrians are sharing research. The Talari and Centaurians have established joint colonies. Even the isolated Vorn have sent representatives to participate in collective projects. Reed walked to the viewing wall, looking out at the incredible vista of the refuge. Ships from dozens of species moved peacefully between installations, carrying researchers and diplomats instead of weapons. It was everything the founders of the Galactic Council had hoped to achieve, but on a scale they never could have imagined. There's something else, Harris said, joining them with a data pad in her hands. Tom's engineering team has been working with Architect Manufacturing Systems. They think they can create new gates. New gates? Smaller ones, designed for communication rather than travel. We could establish instant communication networks between star systems, sharing knowledge across the galaxy in real time. Thyla's eyes lit up with possibility. Imagine the benefits to trade, diplomacy, scientific research. Wars could be prevented through better communication. Resources could be shared more efficiently. Reed smiled, seeing the future stretching out before them. Humanity had stumbled upon one of the greatest discoveries in galactic history, but instead of hoarding it, they were using it to build something even greater, a truly cooperative galactic civilization. Keeper, she said, we accept the responsibility. Show us how to help others become ready for what you've given us. The ancient guardian's form shimmered with what might have been approval. Then let us begin your true education. The technical knowledge you have gained so far is only the foundation. Now you will learn the wisdom that transforms civilizations, from competitors into collaborators. As the historical archive began to reveal new layers of architect philosophy and guidance, Reed felt the weight of the future settling on all their shoulders. They were no longer just explorers or researchers. They had become the inheritors of a legacy that stretched back millions of years and forward into a future bright with possibilities they were only beginning to imagine. The gate that had once been forbidden now stood as a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. And through it, the wisdom of the architects flowed into a galaxy that was finally ready to receive it.